I remember hearing or reading somewhere that if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And it is absolutely true. I come to work joyful every day and ready to go.
And never work.
Yeah. Never worked. No, I just sit back there and my boss goes, "What do you do here?" Nothing.
Welcome to another episode of The Table of Content. I am one of your hosts, Albert Saenz, joined with the classic, the stylish, the always effervescent Michael Steele. Michael Steele, how are you?
I'm getting better every minute, Albert. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat for you. We are joined by Matt Mann, who is our audio engineer and Foley artist for audio theater. So we're going to talk with Matt today about what he does, why he does it, how he does it, and ask him his favorite color at some point. So without further ado, Matt, thanks so much for taking some time to be with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
So, Matt, before we sort of get into the nitty-gritty, I'm curious, how long have you been here with audio theater?
2.5 years now, I think. Yeah, 2.5 years.
But this is, you have a thing about music and sound, but you actually come from a background of serving in the military?
I do. I served for 24 years in the U.S. Navy. Best Navy in the world.
Thank you. Thanks for your service.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'd still be doing it if I could. So, but the knees say no.
Well, it's got to be an interesting transition. I mean, I'm sure, we've talked, and I know that you've sort of always had this sort of passion for music, but it's got to be an interesting sort of, change of pace, of scenery, right? You go from living on a ship, going around the world, and then you play on a keyboard and you make sound effects. Is it really as drastic as it sounds to me?
Sort of. While I was active duty, I discovered that I could go to school at Berklee College of Music while not actually being at Berklee College of Music. They had just started an online program, and we were in England when they started that program. So I signed up for a master's certificate in music production and technology, where they taught music production and audio production. And in that, one of the classes was sound design. So that was like, okay, well, this is kind of fun too. I never thought about making noises. I just want to make music. But it was at the back of my mind as I started recording and making music and recording other people and blah, blah, blah. But I did all of it while I was active duty. And then retired in 2011 from the Navy. And I was doing different things while running my home studio as kind of a small semi-pro studio. And I worked government service for a little while. I worked for a bank chain as an IT. Don't ask me to explain that one because I never went to school to be an IT. But then 2.5 years ago, God dropped this job in my lap. And I've been loving it every day. And I remember hearing or reading somewhere that if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And it is absolutely true. I come to work joyful every day and ready to go.
And never work.
Yeah.
Never worked. No, I just sit back there and my boss goes, "What do you do here?" Nothing. But make noises professionally. And I think that's amazing. And I do. I do sound design. I do every once in a while. I get to do voice work, which I really love doing because I've done that for a long time, but more as a narrator and things like that. But I started composing for some of the productions we do, which I really love because pushes me to get better and better as a musician. Because, 3-chord songs in rock is easy, but writing compositions that work for a production is a very different thing. So that's really pushed me. And then making noises. I go in the studio and I throw things, I drop things, I hit things with mallets or whatever, and that's so much fun. Just as an example, if I may, we were doing a series called "What's This Sound" for a little while, and one day I was trying to make the sound of a building being demolished, and I had pieces of metal and wood and bricks and debris, and I was literally just throwing it across the stage with stereo mics set up and just throwing stuff. And it was a blast. That was the most fun I've had in ages. So I love sound design and Foley work. It's great.
I had the chance to watch you in action last summer, and it was an inspiring thing. We had the live production at the retirement center, right? And just watching you work the sound effects, you were a blur. It was amazing.
There was a lot going on. There was a lot going on. And I was trying to run sound at the same time.
Right. So
that was rough.
Time, yes.
But you were impressive too. I mean, I can't play banjo, and you were knocking the banjo out of the park. So I mean,
fake it till you make it.
That's me and the ukulele. So no, it's fun. When you have fun, it doesn't matter how hard it is. You push a little harder to do it.
Yeah, that's
so.
it.
And I really had never considered pursuing any kind of sound design or Foley work until this job, and it's been enlightening, and it's been a riot trying to come up with a sound. It's like, how do I make that sound? I don't know. Will this rubber glove over this jar of water do? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
Right,
anything.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. You say that you had not considered sort of as a career doing sound design, in spite of the certifications you got. It wasn't, doing sound design, making sounds, throwing metal across the room. So you come here, the job says, we want you to make noise, basically. Has it been a learning process for you since the beginning?
Oh, yeah. And just to preface it, the reason I never even considered it is because I'm older. I'm retired Navy. I figured I was too old. I figured it'd be these young whippersnappers that would, get the jobs first. So I never thought I would even have an opportunity to have a job like this. And I know it started as audio engineer, recording engineer. That's the primary, which I am trained and certified at. But being able to do this extra was certainly a bonus. And yes, it's very much been a learning experience and a growing experience. And YouTube has been my best friend, and I have read and I've bought books. It's like, how do I even go about this? What do I do? Because yes, I can make noise, but how do I turn that into, I have an idea or I need a particular sound. How do I go about doing that? So I learn every day. And we're always bringing in new toys. New artifacts to throw around and see if we can come up with new sounds. I mean, I was very excited the other day. We brought in a bunch of preschool primary blocks. I never thought I'd be so excited about seeing some of those old primary color blocks that we had when we were all kids, right? But it's one more thing to throw and see what it sounds like, and modify to your needs. Shaking BBs around in a metal cage to get sort of the sound of rain or whatever. Shaking an umbrella to sound like birds flapping.
Yeah, I like the umbrella one. I've seen you do the umbrella one, and I could imagine what it was going to sound like, but when you really did it, it's like, yeah, I can imagine that being a bird.
Well, and there's a right way and a wrong way to do it too. I mean, you have to do it a certain way to get the sound you're after. And as far as birds, we have a feather duster, we have two different kinds of umbrellas. We have a pair of leather gloves that shake and sound like a rather large reptilian bird. Whatever. I mean, it's fun exploring and trying to find new ways to make a sound. So, standing on a piece of wood and trying to get it to sound warpy and such for maybe the sound of a ship rocking in the water. I've done that. And that was fun, and splashing water around to get all kinds of different sounds.
So I have a question, Matt. So when you're experimenting with these sounds and you're going through the thought process, is it that you're making the sound and then you're thinking about how it plugs into other sounds that you've heard? Like, because from the listening point of view, I'm always surprised by the sound that I hear, the image that it evokes in the storytelling. And then when I actually see the sound being made, I was like, oh, wait, that's not what I had in mind at all. Like you were talking about rain with the little BBs in this metal cage. Like, anyways.
It depends. I mean, sometimes I go in there just to make sounds and record everything and see what comes up. And it's like, okay, can I take this sound and somehow modify it to be the sound that I need it to be?
Right.
And I have a lot of software effects and things that I can run sounds through or stretch the sounds and pitch them up or down. But sometimes I go in there with a very specific idea in mind. For example, I love using the demolishing building as an example because I thought about all the things that you would hear if a building was being demolished. There's the initial impact, obviously, but then you have bricks and you have wood and you have metal and you have, rebar, heavy pieces of metal, and you might have wire, like chicken wire kind of sounds and all those things. And we just so happen to have those things in our Foley room. So I grabbed it all, and then different kinds and shapes of wood because it wouldn't all be exactly the same.
Right.
And then how do you get those sounds to sound like, what a building, and it took lots and lots of layering, lots and lots of takes of me throwing different things in different directions and maybe throwing wood on a certain piece of metal or glass is a little harder to do because, my boss gets upset if there's glass shards all over the studio. But, I kind of made that work too. And then layering all those different things and then maybe still putting them through software effects processors to enhance them even more. So sometimes it's very much, I have a very specific idea in mind and I go in and try to capture that. Sometimes it's an accident. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, Matt, I think, there's certain people who hear audio engineer and they have some idea of what that might be. And then there's those who hear audio engineer and they don't. They're like, an audio engineer. I hear engineer and I think about people who build, highways and civil engineers and things like that. Can you sort of break down where you fit as an audio engineer here in audio theater as compared to the other audio engineers, and just trying to clarify the engineering standpoint so that people might understand a little bit better about what you do there?
Sure. Well, we're all exactly the same. We build. An engineer building a bridge designs it and makes sure that that the structure comes together the way it was intended, right? So that it's solid and efficient and does what it's supposed to do. I take microphones and mic cables and all these different things, and I'll set them up to record sources to make sure that at the other end, when they're all mixed together, they work well together, right? And it can be tricky. For example, we have a project coming up that we have 13 mics set up in one room, and when you have all these different waves coming from different directions, all these sounds coming from different directions, and different microphones are picking up the same sound but at different times and all this stuff, it can get pretty hairy. And an audio engineer's job is to make sure that those don't cause problems at the output stage. There's a right way to set up microphones so that they don't negatively impact each other. Sometimes it's just changing the direction that a mic is or the distance from each other. In a case where we have all these mics going on right now, I have to just be careful about the volume of each microphone, of each, whatever it is, whether it's a voice or it's a sound effect, to make sure that no one microphone is picking up other things. Okay. And part of that's knowing how a certain mic will pick up. Does it pick up just in front? Does it pick up from the sides? Does it pick up from the rear? And how to place those so that you only pick up what you're trying to pick up and minimize as much as possible anything else. So, and then we take that, and then after all those individual microphones are recorded and whatever is in each one is recorded, then separating them and trying to clean them up and get rid of that extra noise that is going to be in there at least a little, and then mixing it all so that the final stage is what you hear through your earbuds or your laptop speakers. So, and that's the challenge, is making sure that it sounds good through speakers, laptop speakers, earbuds, all of that. So,
I think what I appreciate about your explanation is it
made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. I don't understand what he said. No, I think what's good about it is there's probably a lot of people who listen to what you said and are thinking, I'm not exactly sure what he's talking about, but it sounds kind of complicated, kind of difficult, and it makes more real that this type of work takes skill, it takes knowledge, it takes practice. I come from a video background, and I think, I remember the times that people, I think, just expected that, oh, well, can you just make a video? Can you just record it and throw it together? And be like, sure, I could, but it's not going to be what you want, right? Like, there's a lot that goes into making a final product actually look good. And I think people would want to say,
Right.
well, don't you just turn on your microphone and hit record? I'm not sure what and it's like, why does it sound terrible? Well, because you just hit record. You didn't do any of the work that it takes to make it sound good.
Sure.
Right.
And I've made lots of terrible looking videos, so I'm sure that there's an art and a talent to it, because I can make terrible videos all day long, but to get something really good, it takes an expert.
And that's why Michael Steele's here.
Exactly. Well, you have, I was just thinking, you have the technology and the hardware on the one side, but then, like you were saying, you also have the skill set and the training on the other. And I think with the advent of social media and the spread of affordable technology, everyone then sort of fancies themselves, or could fancy themselves, as a producer of some sort. But you still need that skill level. You still, if you want a better quality, there's still a skill involved on the side of the the producer.
I think it's kind of because I'm a musician first. My brain thinks in terms of music, and I remember when drum machines first came out. We're talking late 70s, early 80s, really, when they started coming into mainstream. They were very robotic. Yes, they could make a drum pattern,
Right?
okay, but it was very rigid. It was dead on the grid, and people made music and people danced to it, but it was very robotic.
Right.
And then people intentionally later started messing it up and doing what they could to kind of get it off the grid so they could humanize it. Right?
Right.
And I think it's the same with AI-generated art, AI-generated music, but it's missing the feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's part of it. It's missing that feel, whether it's video or it's a painting or it's music.
Did you ever listen to those Hooked on Classics, the drum tracks?
Oh my gosh, I loved Hooked on Classics.
It's like boom, boom.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like when you're talking about that, I was thinking about the drum track of Hooked on Classics.
Yeah, they didn't do those for the drums. They did them to remix the classics. But yeah, no. Same with Hooked on Swing.
Really?
Oh, yeah. My grandparents and I loved the Hooked on Swing one because I grew up with my grandparents with Benny Goodman and Tommy Dorsey. So, yeah. Anyway.
Well, we're getting ready to wrap up here, but I want you to answer me one question before we close. So far, here at Audio Theater, what's been one of the most fun projects you've been able to work on? If you can't name, if there's not one, then just pick one that you really have enjoyed working on.
Well, very quickly, I would say there have been two. One was the live production of Uncle Wiggily.
Oh, yes.
Because that was so much fun, and we did it for a retirement community where we got to perform for elder citizens who seemed to really enjoy it, and we had fun doing it. And it's the first time I got to play the ukulele with a banjo player, and that was fun.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. And I would say one of them was our take on Frog Prince, which was a lot of fun. And not only did we have all this Foley stuff going on and all the voice actors, but I got to come in and use one of my synthesizers to basically play a live composition, but also used it because one of the characters was a robot and needed a synthesized voice. So we ran his microphone through that keyboard as well, and all this, and it was a lot of fun. It was very challenging getting everything to work just the way we wanted, but at the end of the day, it was a lot of fun. If you have a chance, go watch that because the behind the scenes is fun. So,
well, we'll link those, but. Matt, thanks so much for taking some time
My
to
pleasure.
share with us, to share with the audience about what you do. So now you know, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit more what goes into our productions and what's happening. So when you hear a sound, there's a good chance it's come from the mastermind of Matt Mann. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
us.
Thanks for letting me ramble on.
Yeah.
Michael Steele, always good to join with you for the episode. So thanks.
Likewise. Thank you. And thank you, Matt, for joining us.
And thank you for your beard.
Right. That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're so glad to have you on board for the Table of Content. Always glad to have you here. Check the descriptions for any links and tune in again for the next episode. As always, until the next time, be good, stay safe. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.